all right? I'm just as comfortable telling you I don't know. And that's usually, as I've found, and it's probably a lot of you have found, is that usually the person who tells you that is the one you can probably trust. Because chances are they're actually going to stick to what they actually do know how to do well and do it exceptionally well. All right? So the idea is to not go into areas where I'm not going to have knowledge. I can try to point you in that direction, but that's as far as I'll go with that. And that's really where local search is based off of directories, as opposed to really just what's on your website. Your website matters, but directories also matter a lot too. And that has a lot to do with the core part of what I do for a living, which is doing virtual tours on Google Street View. Because what you want to have is the ability to show off what a building, a structure, a business, a restaurant, a cafe, accommodation, doesn't matter what industry you're in. You want to show it off in a way that helps people make a decision as efficiently and as effectively as possible. And the best way I've found to do that with, that's been the most authentic, isn't just photos, because it really, although photos are still very good and very important, still do a lot of that, and video is also very important, but virtual tours are turning into being something very, very important for that purpose. And the thing about that is, I look at everything as being, and you'll see me say this in the slides, rinse and repeat. All my life's a circle. I don't know if, has anybody here ever heard of that song, All My Life's a Circle? Right? It's the whole thing about everything goes around and round. Well, the reason why that's so important when it comes to online reputation is, first you got to be found. And when you're found, you want to make sure you show up looking great. And when people have come and done business with you, what's the next step after that? You want them to say nice things about you so that other people will actually come back and see you some more. That's the circle, okay? And that's what online reputation is all about. It's maintaining that. It starts with you and your brand, and understanding that you are your brand and your brand is you, especially if you're a small business. Like when I drive my car around and I got my big logo on the back of my car, people know, hey, there goes Mark again. And I get that. I get people every once in a while telling me, I just saw you in front of so-and-so's business taking some shots again, you know? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So really when it comes to brand, and why I bring up brand as an issue before I get into all of this talk about being found, is you have to make sure that the right brand is being found. Okay, and that you have control over the basic assets of your brand. And the basic assets of your brand is your business name, your product, your logo, your URL. Okay, all those are basic parts that you have to make sure you've actually got in control, that are yours first. Our brand is not really what we think it is, it's what other people think it is. That's really important to remember, that core difference. Sometimes you don't need anything else, all right? But if you're a relatively new business, like I am still, you know, having Google Street View Trusted is a pretty powerful little brand ad. That's basically brand by association. So knowing how to associate yourself effectively with co-branding, with other businesses that are local. I'm a big fan of local businesses working together to co-brand in that way, because brand by association is very, very powerful. And this is my motto, my business motto is, what do you want people to see? It sounds kind of all-encompassing, and it kind of is. But it's pretty powerful, because I want to make sure that if people look for me, doesn't matter what URL they type in, or they think that they're going to type in case they typed it in incorrectly, they're still going to find me. If your online brand cannot be secured, it's probably not a brand you want. Citations and directories. That's okay. So now that you've actually got your brand protected, you've gotten, so number one, right? So what's the first thing everyone's going to be doing in terms of a to-do list? You're going to go back and make sure that you look at whatever your brand is. Look at the .com, look at the .com.au, look at what industry you're in and consider whether or not the .org is going to matter or not, if you're a not-for-profit of any kind. Make sure that you've actually got yourself covered in every way possible, or variations of the name. The cost of buying a URL in Australia, it's like 20 some odd dollars a year. It's $25 a year. It's silly money. To not be buying that is just basically throwing money out the window because of that one possible risk. In the world of citations and directories, first I should probably explain what a citation is and a directory is so you understand the difference between the two. A citation is any time that your online name is found online. Doesn't matter where it is. It could be a company you buy product from and they're saying, you know, one of our clients is so-and-so, whatever your business name is. And they actually have your URL and a link and a logo of your brand back to the other business, back to your business. Okay. That's a citation from basically a B2B relationship. Now, you might actually have written a blog that was then restated as a reference in somebody else's blog. That's a citation. In other places, anytime your website's found inside of a directory, Yellow Pages, Google My Business, Aussie Web, and I could go on and on and on, and I'll be talking about that also. So making sure that you get as many possible citations as you possibly can that are relevant, that make sense. You don't want to have citations that don't matter just for the sake of having citations. There used to be a time when it was a popular thing where people in the SEO world would say, I can get you 1,000 citations for X amount of dollars, and they basically just pay somebody to go out and basically put your name all over the place. And usually there were websites that didn't matter or weren't that important or had nothing to do with your business. So then it doesn't matter. So you got to make sure that it's relevant. So the only way to get good quality relevant citations is to have good quality relevant relationships with businesses who are prepared to actually put your name on their site. So this is one of the great opportunities in terms of content creation that I really highly recommend is if you haven't started to create a blog or if you're not writing articles online it's a great opportunity to think, okay, I'm not going to write this so much for me, I'm going to write it so that other people are going to say, you know what, that's information that would be good for my clients. All right, so if you can share ideas in that way, that's a great way to write a blog. So you're not really writing towards your own audience, write for the audience of your possible clients. That's a great way to actually think, and it also gives you one more area to write about that you might have gone, geez, I'm out of ideas, I don't know what to write anymore. Well, this is another great area, and that gives you that citation capability. Okay, so let's look at exactly what do Google Maps look like and how you show up in a map listing. I've used my own business to try to give you an idea of this, is whenever you search out a business name, you'll usually find it right away at the top because you're actually searching out the name by itself. But if you search out a business category, you'll get usually a selection of businesses to pick from because you didn't pick the business name. That's what's called an organic discovery search. When you actually do an organic search and you end up with a number of different businesses in your area, you have to think about the geography. Okay, this is something that's actually not written down in any of the notes or the screen. You may want to write this down. This is one of my philosophies of marketing, and it's called the GDP. Who here knows what the GDP is? Well, yeah, what's the GDP of a country? Gross domestic product? Right, yeah, not in marketing, not my view. GDP to me, and this is one you can remember very easily, is geographic, demographic, and psychographic. Nice and simple, because when you think about that, the GDP in geo, demo, and psychographics, you start to break things down in terms of how is it that people are actually searching stuff out and how does a search engine actually get the results that it does? Well, in maps relation, it's geographic, obviously, because you put in an address. That's where the business is. But when it comes to being found, remember that there's this thing called the 3-pack. The Google 3-pack is if there is more than 3 businesses, 3 will show up. If there's 2, 2 will show up. If there's 1, just that one will show up, and all that will show up is basically a listing like the one over here on the side. By the way, that is called the knowledge graph. So when you look at your business on Google Maps, and you look on the right-hand side, because after you've found yourself, you'll see this plate on the right-hand side. That's called a knowledge graph. Just a name that Google came up with. You'll notice that if you actually do a search in Google Maps directly as opposed to Google Search, the list is always longer. So with a longer list, what that means is that your prospects, your possible clients, have a much longer list to actually be found by. If you're not ranking well, that's probably an advantage because you might at least show up because you won't be stuck in a problem of a 3-pack. So what I'd like for you to be able to think about now with that list is what you can actually have as a to-do, very simple, is, and that's why I've got it as a checklist, is you go back and search yourself out, your business on every one of those URLs, and then think beyond general and then start to go niche. For example, if you're a financial planner If you're if you're a real estate agent, if you're selling something in the auto industry, if you're, for me as a photographer, you want to make sure that your name, address, and phone number and your business name and as much other content as you possibly can that's consistent is also found on those niche platforms. There's a couple in here that you may not see that are really, really important. And I know that Brendan's going to love this. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a score of 100. Make sure your business is on LinkedIn. It's well populated, that you put a lot of information about your business there. Even if you think, oh, I'm just B2C, I have no requirement. No, no, no. You want to have yourself on Bing and talk about your business on Bing. Because the other thing, too, is think of what's happened with Facebook recently. Anybody who's kind of scared, regardless of their business people that know what's going on or not, they're moving away from Facebook. Where are they going to go in terms of social media? The only thing really left, really, that's still pretty big and popular is LinkedIn. So it just makes really good sense to make sure you've really got a well-rounded out profile in LinkedIn. So as I said, basically, and this is one of my favorite quotes of all time, is basically 80% of success is just show up. Well, the thing is show up consistently. Make sure that your name, address, and phone number are absolutely consistent. And also make sure that your Google My Business page is the first one you check and make sure you get right. That's why really the important thing when you look at Google being the king of the search or queen of the search, I did tell you, give you a stat, it's 93% of search. 93.16% of search at the last report from this organization. That's from the stat counters. So that's pretty important. So no matter what people say, yeah, I just do a lot of Facebook. You know, I'm really good at Facebook. I get a lot of... That's where the search is. I'm not saying that Facebook is bad. Where Facebook is particularly good is for people who already have a relationship with you. From a referral perspective, there's value there. But if you're trying to attract people who don't know who you are, don't know you exist yet, true new business, then you have really no other choice because of that number but to go with Google. I'd be happy to put, you know, Apple and Google photographer on my signage or on my badge. That's fine. I really don't care. I'm agnostic when it comes to that. I would actually almost prefer it because competition's a good thing. You know, I'm not saying all these things that are nice about Google because I'm a Google fanatic. It's just that they're the only ones where all this data happens to reside right now. I'm not saying I would do this because the quality is pretty bad. This is a 360 camera. So when I turn this on, and I'll turn it around so you can see it start recording because it's got the little lights on this side. Okay, now I'm recording in 360 in 4K with that little thing. And it's got stereo microphones, one on either side, so it's actually getting a bit of spatial audio, which is also another thing. So the technology is getting to the point now where creating 360 content is becoming far more accessible. In fact, you could all do this. This little thing is about 300 and, what did Colin pay for it? 320 bucks? About 300 bucks? This is actually Colin's camera. So I borrowed it because it's perfect for these kinds of situations to explain how fast and easy it is because it does video very well. But here's the thing, even in 4K, because everybody here has heard of 4K TVs, right? We all know about ultra high def and 4K. In 360, it's really bad in comparison to what it should be. Because you got to remember that when you're looking at a TV set, you're looking at this screen. How much are you looking at? This much, right? Here to here. Now, if it's if it's a 4K screen, now let's just think now you got to go all the way around, all the way down, all the way, like full 360. Those little dots that made up this screen, they're spread all over the world in 360. So they're really big and blobby and they don't look all that good. So 4K it's okay, it's good fun. All right, I'm playing with it. And for social media posts and for using it on your mobile phone and for things like that, it's excellent for those kinds of things. But as a commercial product that can actually collect data, it's not quite there yet at that size, at that price. But when you get into the $8,000 to $10,000 range, you got some stuff that really works well compared to 300 bucks. All right? But this gives you an idea of what can be done, right? But it's not so fast because this is what I actually uncovered just not that long ago. This was, I think, probably about 6 months before I met you, Joy. I actually did a survey of Central Coast tourism businesses because I had just become a member. And I was curious to see exactly, did the accommodation and tourism and events and food and anything related to the tourism industry, how many of the members had actually taken the time to claim their Google My Business page? Because you'd think that they'd be the hottest onto it, right? They've got to be found. They're very local driven. Well, it turned out that 30% of them weren't even verified. They didn't even know that they had to be verified. Only 7% already had virtual tours, and I had shot, I think at that point, 5 out of the 7. Okay. And the average photo count, how many photos they had put on their Google My Business page, was about an average of 10. The maximum's 200. It's 10. The average number of reviews that had been actually written by people on Google was an average of 5. Think about that. And how long has Google Reviews been around? Like several years now. It's kind of bad, right? So what that told me is there's a need. There's a problem. The Central Coast is behind the game. We've got to get this ball rolling forward, okay? So I got onto our Rampage and it became sort of my mandate. I want to get every business on the coast on Google Maps, verified, understanding that reviews is something they got to do on an ongoing, regular basis, making sure that they know how to take photos for themselves or hire somebody if they're not comfortable doing it, and making sure that because virtual tours typically have to be done by a certified virtual tour photographer, that it get done, because those are the core pieces of data that Google's already looking for. What happens if you're not verified is you actually have no control over your listing. And in fact, Brendan alluded to this earlier, and this happens every once in a while. So first things first, get verified if you haven't. If you don't know how, it's easy. Number one, it's easier than you think, except if you're a brand spanking new. If you're a brand new business, there's always that chance it'll take a little more effort. It's done. So chances are, if you're well established, it'll be fast. But it's very, very important, because once you've done that by one of these methods, and that's actually sort of the example of me being on the phone talking to these people actually at Google. This is the postcard that you'll get. You'll get a number like that. You can even verify it on your mobile phone directly. So if you actually download the app, if you don't already have on your phone the Google My Business app, download it. It's free. And it's great because once you actually have it already downloaded on your phone, if you need to take a photo of something that you want to talk about, which I'll talk about shortly, in something called a post, you can actually take it, post it, and put it on, and it's done. Like, yeah, I'm a photographer. I'd love for you to call me and say, hey, Mark, can you come and take some nice photos? But sometimes it doesn't make any sense, right? You should just take the photo and get on with it. Do it, okay? And if you're not sure on how to take better photos with your phone, I'll teach you. I'd rather have people take better photos that don't look really bad. Happy to do that. Did you know that if you take a photo with your phone, you automatically have the copyright? You own it, all right? The only way that the copyright is transferred is if you intentionally give the copyright to someone else. It's basically, it's got to be handed over officially. It's got to be like signed off. If it's not, guess what? You still have the copyright. So digital assets, where are they going to be found? What are you going to use them for? Right? And remember that if you take a photo with your phone and it turns out to be a really good photo, make sure you leverage it and use it in as many different places as you possibly can, where appropriate. So make sure that you have it available for websites, social media. You can put it on the online directories, because a lot of the online directories will actually host some images, usually 2, 3, 4, not that many. Google My Business is by far like 200. Geez, like it is, how much better does it get? Okay. And by the way, those 200 does not include or count the images in a virtual tour. So if I actually shoot a virtual tour with 150 images in it, and you've already got 200, well, you can have yourself 350. That's fine. I could shoot 1,000. It doesn't matter. So 360 photos have a real interesting benefit. Online maps, obviously, closed-circuit marketing platforms. By the way, closed-circuit marketing platforms. I just took a photo today. I was up in the mall, just walking around. Who's been in the food court recently? Has anyone here been in the food court? Have you noticed that they've got now tables that actually have TV sets that are touch screens?
Yeah, I did notice that.
Yeah. They're actually, so if you don't think that the world of touchscreen and online marketing and closed circuit marketing platforms and in digital format aren't here, it's right here. That kind of technology just a year and a half ago was considered to be the wow factor, where they got the virtual tour where you can navigate the whole place, the whole of the so that you don't have to drive all the way up, especially if it's an ugly day. You know, and I shot it and it was beautiful. It looks great. Flowers are out. Right? So it makes it so that that kind of technology makes it possible to really be able to see things in a closed circuit environment. So blogs and written word, photos, videos, podcasts, okay, and I want to talk a little wee bit about the whole thing about videos because I've got some really cool, neat tricks for you on how you can create blogs and written word. Really, really easy. Super easy. It's as easy as using your mobile phone and talking. All right, and logos and style guides. Those are all things that are part of your style, your digital assets. Every time you record a video, you're usually going to record some audio with it, right? You're probably going to say a few things. If you post this on YouTube, that's another thing. Does anyone here have a YouTube channel? You've got a YouTube channel? YouTube channel? Great. What you do is because you know there's closed captions on YouTube, right? So what you want to do is let the closed captions write out all the words, go into the closed captions editing, copy, paste, fix it up, because it'll be set up so that it's in closed caption format. And now you've got yourself a blog. Words that you can actually extract and put into so you can have the video and say, and if you don't really want to watch this, you can just read it here. And that becomes far more searchable because got to remember that the data that's extracted in Word format is far more recognizable online than video. In video, what's recognizable will be the name, the date, the YouTube channel, any of the data that's attached to it. The rest of it, because it's motion graphics, there's a lot of photos going on. It's 25 or 30 frames a second. That's a lot of data to try to track and extract data out of. So photos are actually easier because of like face detection technology. One of the things I like to tell people is if you give Google a plate of pasta, it'll tell you if it's linguine. All right, it's that smart. Okay, so when in the world of in terms of photo technology, in terms of turning that into data, not so hard. Actually, quite good. The world of video, a little harder. There's your opportunity. Okay, so one more thing you can just take home and just try out and do quite easily with your mobile phone. Because what happens with this is, yes, of course, get a real photographer. But I'll bet you all of you have a relatively good mobile phone in your pocket. That technically could make you a good photographer. Have you actually, who's been to the airport recently? Did you see all those photos driving back that said, shot on an iPhone, shot on an iPhone, shot on an iPhone? What they're not really telling you is that it was shot on an iPhone, but they had $5,000 worth of lights and a really nice studio, right? Because really good photography is dependent on good quality light, okay? And a little bit of skill. But it means that you still got really good tools. And if you got good light and you got a good situation and you practice a little wee bit, you can get some really good photos. So I tell everybody, if you want to get good photos and good video, you have to spend a few bucks. You got to go see a friend of mine, and his name is John Ralph. John will sell you a little tripod. This one over here I didn't buy from John because I've had it since probably 1990 something. It's beat up as ever. And a small microphone. And now this particular microphone is available for iPhones also. It wasn't up until about 2 weeks ago. So I'm really happy to see that the new iPhone socket format that doesn't actually have a regular headphone jack. And what this means is that you can record good audio at the same time. Because the microphone that's in here is kind of so-so. But the most important thing about a good video is good audio. Because that worst case scenario, you could turn it into like a podcast. Or you could actually listen to it and write down the words. You could convert the closed caption and turn it into a blog. So what makes a good video? Good audio. All right? So $80 for one of these microphones. So yeah, am I going to make you spend a little money? Well, it's up to you to decide if you want to do it. But hey, I'm not busting the bank here. And a tripod that you could buy a cheapy one for $40, or you could buy something decent for $200 to $300. But we're not blowing the budget really when you think in terms of marketing and being able to create your own content. The key with this obviously is learning how to do this kind of stuff, all right? And it does come at, you'll have to practice. You have to do quite a bit of it, and you'll have a lot of takes the first time you do it. I still do a lot of takes. That happens. That's all right. And by the way, this microphone comes also with one of these things. I love these things. They call it a dead cat. Okay. I know, it's a horrible thing, eh? But what it is, basically, it's a windscreen. So if you actually are doing this, at Terrigal, you want a beautiful background. Hi, it's Joy. I'm over at Norrie Head Lighthouse. Come and have a look at this beautiful view, right? The wind, the wind, right? Well, this will actually make it so people can still hear you. So all for that same price. So it's very possible for you to create your own content very affordably. So once you've actually created all this wonderful content, you're taking your own photos, or you're hiring a proper photographer, videographer to create good quality content. Those times when you do need professional stuff done. Then you got to place it. Where? On your Google My Business page first, and obviously on your website. Those are the two single most important places you got to go. And I do tell people this. If you've actually got a website and it's a Wix, Weebly, or Squarespace, guess what? If one of those three companies goes out of business, or decides that they don't like the terms and conditions, or because actually the imagery is being housed in another country and something goes wrong, guess what? Your website's gone. All right? There's only one correct format to actually host a website if you want to own the content, and that's WordPress. Really. There's a couple of others. There's Joomla and these other ones. But WordPress by far is the only real good way to go, because you put yourself, again, at risk. You're putting your business at risk every time you say, yeah, I'll just use this for now. And it's not to say these platforms aren't good. They're actually quite slick. You can make some really nice looking websites on these platforms. I've created a fair amount of them, usually for things that I didn't care how long it was going to be up for. It's just a website, putting it up, give this a go, and if it really goes, and it's like, I call my buddy Isaac. I say, hey, mate, I need to have a website. And I've done that a few times. The other place, because it's 93% of the search online, is Google My Business. So what can you do on Google My Business? Well, first and foremost, you want to look at what's the home page. That home page basically gives you an overview of all the bells and whistles and features, what you can actually add on your Google My Business page. The first thing you're going to see is posts, which is relatively new. And Google right now is on a rampage to get all kinds of new stuff on that Google My Business page. Posts, think of it as a Twitter feed. On Google, on search. You don't actually have to be already on Twitter. And don't forget that if you're actually on Twitter, the only people who are going to see it is the other people that have already liked you before, and there's already that connection. But if you actually are trying to reach a new audience, how's that working for you? Not gonna, you can't, right? So Google Posts allows you to post with hot links, with photos, with words, right on your Google My Business page. All right? For example, this event tonight, I actually recopied the Eventbrite information, put it in as a learn more. So if someone actually had gone on there, was interested, they could have actually found it. You can put posts based on time, and if you don't put a timeline on it, Google will automatically remove it, usually in about 10 days. So think of making sure you put your posts up with times attached to it. All right? The other thing I can give you is it's sort of like the power trick. The best button you can use out of all, because there's obviously buy now and book now and all these, the two most powerful words on the internet. Does anybody here know what the two most powerful words on the internet are? It's two words. You'll see it on more buttons on the internet than anything else. Learn more, correct. Learn more. Why? It's not a sales pitch, right? It's just want to learn more. So by using learn more as your button of choice, will probably work more often than not. So Google Posts, really important. The next section is the Info tab. The Info tab is where you put in your hours of operation, including special hours of operation. What happens if you're going to have a staff event day and you need to actually have everybody out? Well, you want to put that in. Christmas, New Year's, all those things that are going to have odd hours where you open and close, or you're open on a Tuesday instead of a Monday because of whatever. You can put all of those details in there. You can put in your phone number, make sure it's correct. You can put in a secondary number. It won't get tracked. So really, one number is fine. You can put in your website, which is very important. Obviously, your search category, what business category you are. Note that Google's search categories are very American. Being a Canuck myself, I look at that and go, yeah, it's just, they don't have white goods in Australia. Yes, they do. They have white goods, right? Whereas for them, it's appliances. So you've got to remember when you're searching for your category, you may not find what you think Yankee Doodles, okay, for it. All right, you'll have better luck. You can also put a full description, which is part of the SEO words, the words that are actually searchable by Google. So put a good description about your business and make it engaging, make it interesting to people. Once you've actually filled out all the info and you've also made sure that your map location is correct, you've moved your pin. If you actually go to the address location, you can actually tick your pin and move it so it's exactly in the right spot. You can correct your address. So if you're 92A, whatever the address is, make sure it's exactly accurate. Then you can go into the insights, which is the next tab. And this is where you start to learn about what's going on, how people are finding you, what are they doing when they find you. Be careful, though, because the stats are not that clear, all right? This over here, data, discovery versus direct. Direct, you can't probably see it, it's quite small. Direct is the green. That's people who have actually found you by typing in your URL or your business name directly. Discovery is somebody looking for your category. So in my case, because this is my listing over here, 90% of the people who have found me because they were looking for a photographer. They weren't looking for work pics. They didn't know I existed. So I guess being on Google is really, really important to me. What I tell people is the bigger the blue, the more that they need you, okay? Because really, it's really that important. That's the area that's really the most important in terms of understanding this one. The next one is where people are finding you, is in search or maps. Then from there, you could see, what did the customer do? Did they call you? Did they get directions to you? Did they visit your website? All of that information is here. Now, remember that the only place that it can track this information when it comes to the phone is through mobile. Okay, so this is not including phone calls from their desk phone, from their home phone. This is only mobiles calling your business. Then there's a map that will actually show where did these people come from, right? And also, which days were the most popular to be called on. Then you've got popular times. When are people visiting your business? Like, this is a lot of really cool data. If you already don't have this data, like, holy geez, I hope this is exciting. Because this is a lot of stuff that you can use that you're not watching to see, well, what can I do to improve my business? It tells you when you're not busy. Maybe it's a good time to have the staff meeting. And that's when we've got to make sure we got lots of staff serving customers, because it's when we're busy, there's lots of people around. Now, you can actually help you with your HR, right? So photo views, this is another one. It'll show you comparison to other businesses in your category. Dollars to donuts, you're going to be ahead of everybody as soon as you know this. You'll probably start off low, and I know everyone should be going home going, putting some photos up, putting some photos up, putting some photos. You want to be ahead of everybody else. There's no reason why any business should have less than 30 or 40 photos at any given time. And keep it reasonably fresh, or at least authentic and good at telling in the sense of what your business is really about. Oh, I'll go one back. Okay, what your business is known for. That's relatively new. All right. For example, in the food industry, if you're running a cafe or restaurant, you're really known for your coffee. You're really known for your canapes. You're really known for your steak, whatever. So this is what a photos feed will look like on your Google My Business page. As you can tell, I've got a lot of photos in there. And by the way, here's a trick. A lot of people think that because they're not a place-based business, I'm a go-to business, like a plumber. You go to, you actually service other people. They say, well, obviously I can't put 360 photos or a virtual tour. Well, you're right that you can't put a virtual tour, but you can still put 360 photos. All right? Practically all my photos are 360s. Right? And I'm a go-to business. Although my address is listed, I'm still a go-to. All right? Really important to make sure you feed as many photos as you possibly can. When it comes to videos, be aware that if you have trouble, if you record a video and you go to upload it on the Google My Business page, because you can, You will be limited to 100 megabytes in size. So make sure that if you have a problem, it's probably too long. You'll need to chop it or downgrade the quality or do something so that it actually will load. That basically, it's a limitation. And you can actually categorize. Very important to categorize your photos too. This is like if you're a restaurant business, you want to have the food. If you're in the accommodation business, you want to make sure you have the listing of which industry you're actually. Is this self-catering? Is this all those kinds of things. There is also an option if you don't already have a website, and I say this with great caution. Google will provide you a website for free. You could just click on the little website button, build yourself a website. And what it does is it grabs all the photos, your name, address, and phone number, your description, and it says, here's a website. But it doesn't have your URL on it. It's got a Google URL on it. And if you decide you want to do something cool, like have some call to action buttons in there or blog, forget it. It's gone. Not going to happen. It doesn't exist. And again, guess what? You don't own it. So it's not really the best choice. It's probably the best way to get a website if you don't have one at all, temporarily until you get a proper website. I call it's plan C, not even plan B. Inside this panel also, you'll have the ability to get onto AdWords Express inside your Google My Business Knowledge Graph panel. This is where you can buy ads. And the problem with buying ads on AdWords Express is you cannot do a lot of very special things like, for example, remove words that people will find you by that would actually not work for you. It's very, very limited in terms of the way that you can get ads. Now, I'm not an AdWords partner or AdWords Express specialist. If you have questions about that, I'm more than happy to refer you to lots of people, but that's really a category where if you want to buy ads, if you're prepared to spend money, you could try AdWords Express. Chances are it's a good place for you to start thinking about keywords. And within a month or two, you're going to say, this is really too hard. And you really should just find yourself an AdWords partner that can do it for you. The cost for getting an AdWords partner will save you probably more money in words that are being clicked on that didn't return a result. You'll probably spend less and get more result. When I talk about that, I talk about it as also the best way to avoid stock photos and to make sure you show off your business in the most authentic way. There's this thing that happens in the human mind whenever you actually put your finger on a screen or a mouse on it and you are in control. You're the director of the movie or of the show. And it's not a movie, by the way. It's a single image. When you're in control, what happens? You start thinking, my goodness, this is real. All right? That's why that virtual tour photography does fall under the paradigm of virtual reality, because it does make you think that it's real. And the likelihood of actually having a more engaging experience for people is far higher because of that. The stats are showing on that basically, the more important stat is that basically more than 50% of adult internet users depend on virtual tours to research regular basis. That's 2014. Well, back then, people didn't even know what VR was. Think about it now. It's not gone down, it's gone up. The thing that happens too, though, with virtual tours, and I'll very briefly touch on this, is that when I shoot virtual tours, generally speaking, I shoot them and put them on Google Maps. But the best way to actually have a large space virtual tour is something called a custom virtual tour. And a custom virtual tour, what that does is it gives you a navigation layer that allows you to be able to see a lot more and do a lot more with it. With a regular virtual tour that's on Google Maps, I can then put on your Google Analytics so you can track it. Social media shares directly inside of it. Hotspots, you can even put in booking engines, you name it. It's like a website all of its own. All right, so as far as imagery goes, it's pretty powerful stuff. There's a guy named Kevin Kelly who he started a magazine called Wired Magazine. Wired Magazine is probably one of the bigger names in the world of tech. All right. And his view 2 years ago was that within 5 to 7 years, most websites would be VR-enabled or VR-based. All right? And that's really where we're going. So the biggest reason why I'm participating in this space is because that's where it's all going. I mean, I could stay focused on what's current now, and I'd be doing probably more business now, but it wouldn't be necessarily setting me up and my clients for the future. It's about the future, right? And lo and behold, I happen to think of you. You see, this is actually an example of a virtual tour of virtual tours, because what I actually can do with this, and this is something you can think about as a director, if you're actually in charge of a large group of businesses, you can actually have multiple virtual tours linked up together. I'm right now working with a school that has multiple facilities, totally different separate facilities. And we're going to create one virtual tour that actually interlinks multiple facilities across in one platform inside their website. All hosted on Google Maps for the imagery, but with a beautiful layer that makes it easy to navigate. So, I can give you lots of good reasons why a virtual tour will work. I'll let you kind of have a peek and see if there's anything in there that you think is of value to you. Some of those are all very technical, but in the end what it means is it's absolutely loaded with features to get a custom virtual tour in comparison to just regular Google My Business Street View on its own. All of this has been done so that we can create a good reputation for your business. Make yourself look really, really good, right? So once you've done that, what should you be doing is requesting reviews, right? That's a pretty obvious one. You should say, please, let me know how we did. And you got to keep it authentic. You want to ask everybody, all right? Ask as many people as you can. And make sure you get those responses on a regular basis. And the reason being is that reviews are now one of the single most important factors in SEO. If you look at the local pack finder breakdown, remember that 3-pack we were talking about? What ranks your business highest? Google My Business itself, 19%, reviews 13%, citations 13%. I mean, you look at that, all the things I've been talking about, we're eating up well over half of the value of your being found in local SEO based on 3 factors. Pretty simple stuff. So it comes down to citations and directories, right? Making sure your imagery is good, your digital content, your digital assets, and making sure your reviews are really good. And how do you actually do this? After you look at a business, if there's lots of reviews, you'll read them. And what's one of the things that you'll do is if there's not a lot of reviews, is you'll go to the bad one first, right? Notice that we have this thing. We want to see what was wrong. So you make sure that you, how do you solve this problem? Is make sure you have a lot of reviews. Okay, because if you don't have a lot of them, that's when the bad ones really show up. But if you've got a lot of reviews, and your average is somewhere between 4.2 to 4.8, that's about the sweet spot out of 5. If you're a 5-star review, which sometimes happens because you may not have a lot of them, or you have a very, very one-to-one relationship with your clients, and so they do trust you to that level. But if you're 4.2 to 4.8, that's about where you want to be. The challenge with it, though, is getting the reviews is actually really hard. And what we've actually found is that most businesses don't take the time to ask for reviews on a regular basis. And I've actually had a lot of people tell me, geez, I need some help because I don't know how to do this. And what this does is it basically helps you request reviews in an automated basis, and mostly on email, but also can be done by phone, by mobile phone. And the beauty behind doing it that way is you're actually building a process, a system that you can even hand off to an employee or a staff member if you do have someone to do that. And if you're self-employed and you don't have a lot of time to do all these things, it's kind of automating things becomes even more important. So what this does basically is it helps get that up. Now really, online reputation, if you look at these guys, if you think about what these guys are saying, right? We're talking about brand, right? It all ties back into the same thing. Because your brand is basically what people are saying about you, right? Remember I was saying that at the very beginning? Well, make sure that they say that in those reviews, all right? And what you can do is you can just basically dump in a list of names of people that have done business with you before, or you can do it so that it's actually automatically grabbed right out of a CRM if you have one built into your business, and it'll actually feed it directly into the system, and it sends out the request for reviews. You can also just take the same system and then it develops a Clipit that you can put inside your signatures or right on your invoices. It'll even do a QR code for you so that you can actually make it easier for people to get your reviews. And I think I've got access to 37 or 38 review platforms because Google and Facebook are the most important, but there's a lot more than that. All right, as far as we're concerned here, did I answer those 4 questions for you all? Yeah. Yeah? Okay. Because that's really what's important to me, because you've got to be able to walk back out of here and say, I know exactly what I can do for my business tomorrow morning. And some of these things will take you 5 to 10 minutes. Really simple stuff. Most things you can put into a schedule that basically only requires a little bit of time every week. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.